As someone who's had stakes in everything from, shall we say, adult entertainment clubs to real estate, what was your favourite sector to be in and why?
Obviously strip clubs. Hi guys, how are you doing? Thank you very much for having me. As Amelia says, I'm an investor, I'm an entrepreneur. I also have a podcast and do many other fun things. But my life has been a story of ups and downs, and hopefully more ups and downs now. But I always like to, I guess, learn from my experiences, and I love to share my story with other people. Whether it's guys like you, looking for your future, whether it's staff in my businesses or just people wanting advice. Because I always very much believe that we only really learn anything from mistakes. From things that go wrong, because I think, when something goes right, we know it's gone right. We don't know why it's gone right. We just know it's worked out. But if it's gone bad, then we can kind of analyze it and get to the bottom and understand. But like I said, I don't know where you guys are all at in life in terms of if you know what you want to do with yourselves, if you want a career in business, or if you're just exploring. But since as long as I can remember, I was probably 9, 10, 11 years old, I always knew that I wanted to work in business. I didn't particularly know what I wanted to do. My dad was a businessman. He had a computer company writing software, and I guess that was formative on me in some way, shape or form. But I always wanted to make money, and I think at the time, all I knew from watching TV or reading books was that business people make money, and I was always told you've got to have your own business, and that's how you can really make money. I think probably as a separate point, we can maybe talk about the fact later that I actually very much think that's not true nowadays. There's so many other ways to make as much money as any business people would. But at 12, 13 years old, I was going to work in business. But I just didn't know what I was going to do. And my actual first foray into trying anything in business, I was about 15 years old, and actually I'm dating myself now. But I had a friend, and a friend of his had just bought the domain name spicegirls.com. This shows how long ago this is, going back to the very beginning of the internet. And he just bought spicegirls.com, and he managed to sell email addresses on there, sell access to the domain, and then ultimately ransomed it to the Spice Girls, and they paid 250,000 quid for this. So I was hearing this story from a friend of mine in the gym, and I thought, I'm going to go and do the same for somebody else. And at the time, I was a big Natalie Imbruglia fan. I'm sure none of you have heard of her, but she was someone I liked at the time. I thought, I'm going to buy this domain name. I'm going to make my fortunes from it. I'm going to ransom it back to the record company. And she was pretty hot as well. So I thought, that was going to be my way into running off with her and making some money. Unfortunately, it didn't quite go to plan. I bought the domain name. I got in touch with the record company, who decided that I was blackmailing them and wanted nothing to do with it. And I ended up having to sell it to a fellow fan or fellow stalker for about 500 quid. I think I probably spent 490 quid getting that far. So I guess technically I'd turned a profit, but it wasn't the start I was looking for. So my next job was I was actually a table magician. It couldn't be any more different to I guess a career in business. But I used to be a fan of magic as a kid, and it was always my hobby. And I wanted to buy a watch. My parents, I tried to get it from my parents. My parents wouldn't buy it, so I decided that I was going to go and become a magician in the local restaurant. And I think for me, it had been an important story that I talk about a lot nowadays as well, that I went to work in this restaurant for no money. I'd worked there for 2 years, and I worked every Friday night and every Saturday night, and I used to get paid one garlic bread. Literally one garlic bread on a Friday, one garlic bread on a Saturday. However, I used to walk out with maybe £300 a night in tips. And this is £300 a night 25 years ago. And I also used to get to the people I'd go and do the tricks for were all the kind of, the well-to-do, wealthy people in the local area who then, wanted to hire me for private events, or, it gave me access to something else. And it was funny because, I used to have the mickey taken out of me by all my friends back then, saying, you go to work and you don't even get a wage, you've got a job that you get paid for a garlic bread for. But later in life, I always talk to people about how important it is that, to worry less about the salary, to worry less about the basics, but, what's the vehicle that you're putting yourself in? What's the platform that can allow you to move on? And far too often people will take, too high a salary, which then removes all other opportunities for them. And, if I meet salespeople nowadays, most of the guys that I would ever interview would be much more interested in a higher basic wage and a lower commission than the ability to have uncapped commissions and lower wages. Now, it's something I discovered by accident, but that was very important to me. And I spent 2 years working in this restaurant. I'd be taking home 600 quid a week and 2 garlic breads, I was earning more than the waiters and even more than the manager at the time. But I knew magic wasn't going to be my future. I still wanted to be in business. But my parents at the time were very, very kind of education-led. My mum particularly, again, I came from I guess a generation where it was very much believed that if you didn't go to university, then it would be as good as impossible to secure any kind of decent career prospects. But I was never interested in that. I knew I just wanted to get on into business so that I could make money. So I convinced my parents to effectively let me take a gap year. I convinced my parents to let me take a gap year, and I decided that during this gap year I was going to. I was going to go off and make my millions, but if it all went wrong, then at the end of the gap year, I could go back to uni and start again. Although I did miss one bit. I did take a place in uni. I went to up in Bradford, not far from Leeds where I lived. I went to go on a business and business finance and economics degree, and I got about 6 weeks in, and I felt, because I was working at the same time, I felt that I'd be able to go to uni and do my work, because all my mates who went to uni, I mean, if they did 5 hours a week of lectures, they probably had a tough week. So I thought I'm going to be able to get the two things done together and kind of keep my parents happy. Unfortunately, the course I seemed to fall on had about 30 hours a week of lectures, and textbooks like this, where I had to read 5 of them a week. So it was just never ever going to work for me. And so I left there after 6 weeks, but said to my parents, if everything doesn't work out during the next year, then I'll go back to uni and we'll just consider it a gap year. Now, my dad at the time, he'd invested in a. We're so popular, we're running out of chairs. My dad had invested in a business at the time, like a clothing company where they made uniforms for security guards, bus drivers, that kind of thing. And I went there to work in sales. And I probably did the selling there for 6 or 9 months. And this was a business where my dad had been told that it was a fantastic business, a family business that had been around for 30 plus years. It already made a lot of money, but it just needed a bit of short-term cash flow and a bit of support from him, which he put in. But as is always the case in these kind of businesses, the money put in became 5 times the amount, 10 times the amount, 20 times the amount. The problems were insurmountable. And after 6 or 9 months of me being in there, I was still living at home at the time, so I'd be going home every night to my dad and saying, "This is ridiculous. These guys at work, they're abusing you, they're taking advantage of you, they're not doing anything properly. There's all these these things that we should be doing." And he kind of used to turn around to me and he'd be saying, "I don't disagree with you, but I just can't be bothered," because my dad had just retired at the time, and he was saying, it's just too much grief. And after about 6 months of me banging my hands on the table at dinner every night, saying how ridiculous it was, he turned around one day and said, "You know what? You can go and do what you want with it." He goes, I'll let you run it, because you can't make it any worse than these guys have already done. So fine, crack on and do what you want. Just stop bringing these arguments to the dinner table. So I went into work the next day. And I fired everybody. I mean, literally everybody, apart from this little old fella who worked in the warehouse. We got rid of the accounts, the sales guys, the production. Absolutely everybody went, and we started the business from scratch with with a similar but different business model and with a completely new ethos and with a completely different set of staff. And over the next 3 years, I ran that business. I mean, when I took it over, it was losing about £300,000 a year. And over 3 years, we went from kind of losing 3 to 2 to 1. And after 3 years, we made our first profit of about £30,000. But it was never the amount of money we made, because obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't exciting money. But what was so important for me, and I think so formative for the rest of my career, is that to say I was thrown in at the deep end would be the understatement of the century. I mean, I was given every conceivable problem that any business owner could possibly ask for. I had customers who didn't want to deal with us, suppliers who didn't want to supply us, we had banks who wouldn't touch us, staff who were either demotivated, demoralised, or non-existent. And it was just, it was the best learning curve that I could possibly ask for. And I think, I did that from being 18 to 21, and I got to learn more in 3 years than, probably most other business people will get to learn in a lifetime, just because they would never have to suffer so many problems. But it was never where I kind of wanted my future to be in that particular business. And I think also, I also found that my interest in business was more solving problems, having ideas and delivering on them, and not really, running a business or managing it long term. So I left at that point, and my dad came in, and I decided that my true calling was to run bars and pubs. Again, not because I knew anything about them, but I just thought, every guy wants to have his own bar, have his own pub, and make money whilst propping up the bar and drinking on a Friday night. So I went off to open my first pub, which I did, to varying degrees of unsuccess, and a second and a third. And over the next 2 or 3 years, over the next 2 or 3 months, I got a small estate of community pubs that they traded okay. But what I learned very quickly was that it was impossible to make enough money to run the business by just selling alcohol and food, and we needed some kind of other way to have an income, to have something that was going to generate more profit, and I decided that was going to be a strip club. So I've been told not to bring politics or swearing here, but I don't want to lie. So I decided that again, the fact that I'd been a customer in my personal life deemed me qualified enough to bring the economics of the strip club business into my bars and pubs. And in 2004, that was really the kind of the start of my more exciting career, and where I first started to say what I would consider successful and actually make some money. So in March 2004, I opened a strip club in Wakefield in the north of England, and we hit the ground running. I felt that it was we were going to take what was a traditionally let's say unacceptable shunned business model that was run by either gangsters or rich men with a plaything, but take all the genuine principles and legitimate principles of business and bring it to this sector. That was my professional pitch to the bank anyway. And we opened in March and we hit the ground running. And 6 months later, I had the opportunity to buy another club from a business which had been failing. And from kind of 2004 to 2007, I went on a growth rampage, and by January 2007, we were the biggest strip club operator in the UK. I had an estate of pubs across the north of England, bars, restaurants, property portfolio, juice bars, and at that time, it was an economy of very easy money. This was kind of pre-credit crunch, where it was a complete bubble of available cash, and it was naively for me, it was all I knew at the time, because I'd ring up a funder, I'd ring up a bank and ask to borrow some money, and 10 minutes later it'd be there, and I thought this was normal, and I thought this would never end. So I just kept borrowing and growing and borrowing and growing. But I guess unfortunately, we were creating what, in hindsight, I understand is a very over-leveraged situation. And in June 2008, we had the rug pulled from our banks. This was, again, it's long before your times, but this was the start of the credit crunch. The banks didn't know probably how bad it was going to get, but they certainly knew they weren't going to be doing any more lending. And we, one by one, our lenders pulled the plug, and like a house of cards, it all fell down overnight. And in September 2008, all the businesses went into bankruptcy, and I was declared personally bankrupt as well. So what had been a phenomenal run, where I guess I was building businesses every day, earning a fortune, spending a fortune, and living the high life, it literally stopped overnight. And in September 2008, I found myself with no business, with a 1-year-old daughter, and no idea what I was going to do next. And also at the time, we can probably talk about this in the Q&A later on, anyone around me basically told me that was my life over, that was my career over. You've lost your credibility, you'll never borrow any money again, no one will ever go anywhere near you. You may as well go and get a job at McDonald's and call it a day. Which obviously isn't what I did, but for me it was never from a position of any great answer of why I kind of got back on the horse and did something else. But I felt at the time, I've got two things I can do here. I can sit at home and watch Jeremy Kyle all day and moan about how bad the world's treated me, or I can get out to work and earn some money. I thought I had a wife at the time and a daughter who needed providing for. I also knew that I wasn't born to be poor, so I kind of woke up the next day and got back to work again. And I rebuilt the leisure businesses, but also in the back end of running the leisure businesses, I'd started to become a finance company as well, because I'd spent so much time borrowing from all these alternative lenders, from all these strange niche banks, that I kind of learned how to be a lender by being a borrower. And one of the first things I did to try and put some food on the table again after being made bankrupt was really use my skill set of understanding how to structure loans, of understanding how to match borrowers and lenders, and build a small finance brokerage. And that's kind of fast forwarding from, let's say, 2012 to now. That's really where I've spent the last 8 years in a position of being a lender, of investing in other businesses, of financing other businesses, but doing it from a position of learning from my mistakes, really. And it's always, I guess, an old adage that when you're in business, you always moan about the banks not understanding the opportunities that are put there in front of them, or if only you had someone who understood your business, who could give you some capital. And I've over the last 8 years, we've financed probably over 200 million pounds worth of UK businesses, but all businesses have got a story. We don't mind what sector it is. We don't mind what problems they've got. What their background and what their story is. We just care about that there's a solid business idea under there, with someone who's capable of delivering it. And that's kind of what's brought me to today. But it's a business model based on learning from my mistakes. It's a business model of being able to teach my borrowers and my clients where they're going wrong, because far too often people think they need money when maybe they just need some support as well. But also, most of the problems that I've suffered, they're not unique problems, but they are problems that you probably only suffer once in business. Hopefully never, but probably only once. So when I get to look at some of these other businesses and I can see what's gone wrong for them, that's where we can really add value in a way that other people can't. And for me, that's what kind of keeps me excited and gets me up in the morning. That even though technically the business is the same, I never know how the phone's going to ring. I never know what the problem is going to be. I never know what problem we're going to have to solve the next day. And I think for me, having found my feet, in different industries over the last 20 years, I will be doing this business until the day I die, because it never feels like work. I very much love every minute of what I do. It's my work, it's my hobby, and I love to meet all the different people I get to meet. I love to solve all the different problems that I get to solve, and that's my story to today. Really, I've never done. Any talking I do, I normally talk to, let's say, business peers or fellow entrepreneurs. So I've never talked to a group of you guys. So I guess I didn't know what to talk about before I came, but I thought, as well as kind of telling you my backstory, and we do this Q&A, I thought I'd give you kind of 7 or 8 of what I think are the most important characteristics or tips or strategies, if you like, that you guys need, whatever career you're going to go in. Again, I don't know if you want if you want a future in business, or if some of you guys are going to be doctors, dentists, lawyers, or whatever it may be. But I think whatever you want to do in life, even if that's being a house husband or a housewife, there's certain fundamentals that are absolutely crucial to success and crucial to your underlying happiness. And for me, number 1 is you've got to find something that you're passionate about. You can't be successful without passion. I think it doesn't matter what that is that it is that you're passionate about. Again, from a business perspective, I think historically people always think it has to be money based. But if I look back at all the businesses that I started, whether it was the pubs, whether it was the strip clubs, whether it was the restaurants or the juice bars, I actually kind of went into all of them from a position of thinking that I would be passionate about that business. I didn't understand particularly at the time the economics or how I was going to make money, and we could probably argue in hindsight that was a bit stupid, but I knew that one way or the other I would find a way to make them successful, because it would never feel like work, and I'd be loving every minute of everything I do. So number 1, you've got to have passion about whatever you do. I think number 2, it's important to take action. Well, it's absolutely essential to take action. And I think when you look at the difference between anyone who's successful or unsuccessful in any walk of life, the missing ingredient is people just not taking action. And it's not just about business; it's about anything in life. I'm sure you've all got friends, family members, whatever, who are they talk about starting this business or taking up this hobby or going on this diet or whatever it may be. And none of these things are probably complicated things, but the big difference is most people do nothing, and some people start. And the hardest step, so the first step is probably always the hardest step, but the difference between the winners and the losers really is taking action. I think thirdly, whatever you do, once you've found your passion, once you've got your commitment, once you've taken your action and you found your passion, you've got to commit, and you've got to be all in on whatever you do. And again, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but I just don't believe you can be super successful in any field without super commitment to it. I think there's always examples of people who say, oh, he's just a great footballer, or he's really good at this academically, or whatever it may be. I think there's people who can breeze through life being very good at something, but if you want to be absolutely great at something, then you really do have to give it your all and commit to it. I think as well, it's absolutely imperative to build your network. I mean, this is a whole topic in itself. And if anyone ever gets me on my own or watches any of my videos or anything that I do on my podcast, I drum on about networking all the time. And again, it doesn't matter what career you're in, what you want to do in life. Obviously it's the old adage of it's not who you know, so it's not what you know, it's who you know. And as unfair as people may like to complain that life is, it is unfair, because really, if you know the right people, if you've got the right network around you, there is ultimately nothing that you can't achieve. And I look at my career, and over the last 20 years, I've probably got 4 or 5 or 6, like career-defining moments. And each one of those moments, where I've kind of, moved on to the next level in whatever way that's been, has always been down to my relationship with a particular person. And I think, it would be easy to say, oh, well, you'd have found another way. Maybe I'd have found another way, but that other way would always have been, from my relationship with someone in some way, shape or form. And I think also it's super important that you have the right support around you. Now, and whether that's friends, family, husbands, wives, whatever it may be, I think it's impossible again to be successful if the people around you are always pushing or pulling in a different direction. And again, from a business perspective, it's something I see day in, day out with clients of mine who have missed out on big opportunities because either their husband or their wife has been unsupportive of what they want to do. Whether that's signing a guarantee or allowing them the time to be able to do what it is that they want. But again, you need the right people around you. A, to be successful, and B to enjoy your journey along the way. And I think that's 5 things, not 7, but I think that they're my five top tips for you anyway for whatever career, whatever line of business, industry, or whatever it is you want to do going forward. So there's only one person left, so hopefully the rest of you guys have enjoyed what I had to say. Thanks a lot for having me here. Obviously I know Hugo's got some questions for me, and if anyone else wants to ask anything, then I'm all ears, because I always find in these situations that it's the Q&As where you guys get the best value. So please fire away.
Right, first of all, thank you so much for coming.
Let me just I'm sweating up here.
Give you a minute.
Sorry.
So if anyone, who is your inspiration because clearly you're a high achiever, who is your inspiration been, if anyone?
I'm glad you asked me that, because you just reminded me one of my 7 points that I forgot about, which was going to be mentors and the importance of having mentors around you. I don't ever think that I've looked at one specific person who's been like my idol or my inspiration. I think there's always been different people at different stages of my life who've probably inspired me in some way, shape or form. I guess obviously as a 12, 13-year-old when I was wanting to be in business, it was all your stereotypes of an Alan Sugar, of a Richard Branson, of a Donald Trump, this is long before he was a president. They were probably my original business stereotypes, but I think as life goes on, I get inspiration every day from people in business, from people in sports, from housewives or from homeless people, or whatever it may be. I think there's always someone that you can learn something from. And I have a podcast, as I mentioned to you, where on my podcast I have all kinds of different guests, from very well-known people to very unknown people. And I always describe the podcast as an organic conversation between two people, where by the end of it there'll be something interesting and some actionable nugget of advice for my listeners to take away, and to be honest, selfishly for me to take away. And I really do believe that if you've got an open mind, anyone can be an inspiration. Anyone can be a mentor.
You've clearly got a wide network. It seems like you've been working on it. So what's a piece of advice you would give your past self? Obviously, 2008 financial crisis was a tough time, but what advice would you give yourself if you could talk into the past?
So, obviously there'd be specific things that I could look back and change, to do with a bankruptcy or to do with financial problems I've had. But I think something that could have accelerated me 10 years sooner would have been taking away the ego factor of wanting to do everything yourself, of thinking that I have to own everything, I have to control everything, and ultimately that's the only way I'm going to make money. And as I was saying a minute ago, that over the last 20 years there's been these kind of 5, 6, 7 defining moments where I've kind of jumped to the next level based on a relationship with someone. I guess another translation of that is the power of partnerships. And I think until I was probably 32, 33, I felt that I had to do everything on my own. I had to own 100% of every business. I couldn't give anything away. I didn't want to share anything. And now I very much realise that that if I can partner with one person, two people, however many that may be, I can do a lot more. I can go a lot further. And I guess almost ironically, because this was why I avoided doing it, I can make more money and and get a bigger ego out of it, if you like, by sharing the pie with somebody else.
Feeds into itself almost. So as someone who's had stakes in everything from, shall we say, adult entertainment clubs to real estate, what was your favourite sector to be in?
Obviously strip clubs. What was my favourite sector? You know, I like the variety. I mean, I love what I do now from the lending model, because it gives me the exposure to all the different businesses, and I think you know, that ultimately most businesses have got the same underlying principles. You know, they may have different economics, but you know, but they've all got the same underlying principles. And I think, you know, for me, on any one particular day, you know, the business I like most is the business that I'm enjoying being in. If that makes sense. Yeah, and I wouldn't want to, you know, I mean, there's things I don't do, and I don't do things that I don't understand. You know, I'm not scientific. You know, I don't understand biotech. You know, I mean, we talked a bit about crypto before we started. I'm in crypto from a very simplistic high level, but I don't understand, you know, these businesses on a granular level, so I'd avoid those. But you know, I like to do anything I understand, anything I can enjoy, and anything where I can work with people that I would have fun with.
So you clearly know what you're talking about. So when you look at what's something you want to tell these people for their future, for their success?
I think, you know, going back to the first point I made about having a passion, I think, you know, you've got to find what it is you love, because you're going to be doing this for a very, very, very long time. I think, you know, for you to be really successful in what you do, you've got to love it. And, you know, money and everything else aside, you know, at my age, I look around, too many people around me, you know, it's my age, older, younger, who live lives that they don't enjoy. You know, they do jobs, they work in jobs that they don't enjoy. They're, you know, married to partners that they don't like. They hang out with friends that they don't like, and all of it's just so unnecessary. And you know, I think ultimately, you know, all these people who are working in a job that they're not happy with, they could probably replace that. They could quite easily replace that job for a job that they did enjoy for probably not any different money, and I just think people just get, you know, you just get caught up in the whirlwind, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. And I think, yeah, you know, as non-business as it may sound, my biggest piece of advice is just to, you know, to find something you love and go with it, because if you do love it, you will be successful in it. And if success to you means money, then I do believe you have to love that. You have to love it as well. You know, you can't make loads of money over a 20, 30, 40, 50 year lifespan by not enjoying what you do. It's just impossible.
So you're almost like a walking allegory to do what makes you happy and you'll succeed. So that's all the questions I have. If anyone else wants to ask them, they're welcome. But thank you so much.
What is more important for you, like the journey or the result in the business?
What's more important, the journey or the results?
Yeah.
I think if you'd have asked me 20 years ago, I'd have said it was a result. And now maybe I can say that because I've had the results, that I can be more relaxed about the journey. But I think, you know, I mean, it's almost a repeat of the things I've been saying. But you know, you've got to be prepared to have the patience to enjoy the journey to be able to get the result. And for me, the two very much come hand in hand. I think, you know, you can't really enjoy the success without the struggle. Otherwise, you know, if you're giving it on a plate, it's, you know, it's not really that much fun. You know, it sounds it at first, but it isn't. And I think, you know, the benefits of the journey, you know, spread onto so many other things.
Sorry.
You can ask them for everybody else.
Yeah. How did you broke the fear of starting your own business?
How do you?
How did you broke your fear of starting your own business?
So I mean, I guess for me, I never had a fear of starting my own business because it's what I knew I wanted to do. I mean, I guess that, you know, for me that would have been like asking a fellow 18-year-old that how did they, you know, break the fear of, you know, wanting to try and be a professional footballer or whatever that may be. But I guess if I was to answer that question, you know, differently to other people looking to start a business, and it's interesting you talk about the fear, because we actually did a piece of research 3 or 4 years ago for something I was doing for a newspaper, and I forget the exact statistic, but it was a big number that, you know, something like, you know, 60% of UK people have a desire to start a business at some point in time, but 80% of them don't do it because of the fear of failure. And I think, you know, business aside, you know, that fear of failure is what kind of paralyzes so many people in so many walks of life. You know, whatever it is they want to do, you know, whether it's from starting a business to following the dream to, you know, through to asking a girl or a guy out, you know, and it's always easy for me to say, because these things don't bother me. But I really very much believe that the fear of regret is so much stronger, is so much stronger than the fear of failure. That you've just got to, I guess bite your tongue, one step forward. And as I was saying with some of my other tips, you've just got to take action and crack on, because so many other people won't be taking action that if you do, you're already so far ahead of the game. And again, actually, I was making a video about this the other day, because I don't often make selfie videos when you're walking around, because I do get self-conscious about it as well. I think, oh yeah, God, I'm gonna feel an idiot walking around the streets because everybody's looking at me, and I had no time to do it any other way, so I thought I'm just going to have to, close my eyes and crack on with this. And what I was saying on the video was that you've got to find a way to not care about being judged. And for me, with that video, I was in France the other day, and thinking, look, if I'm walking around town, first of all, anyone looking at me is not going to understand a word I'm saying, because I'm talking English while I'm walking around France. And secondly, if anyone does look at me, they're going to look at me for 1 second and then turn around and crack back on with their life again. And we can apply these kind of examples to whatever the questions are, whatever you're thinking about. I just think that ultimately a life of regret is much more scary than a life of failure.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.